Thanks for joining. So today we go through one of the topic that will become a standard de facto across the industry. How the pipeline is changing, how the software development is changing. You find a lot of talks about AI and how it is changing the way teams and department works, but we don't discuss a lot how it's changing from a security perspective, all these controls and pipeline. We are being born and bred with all this agility kind of infinite loop where there was the continuous integration and continuous delivery, and we are familiar with that. But things are changing, and is not just a technology problem, is the overall fact that nothing is anymore only about the developing, is also about the data. So let's, I did a few slides to help, help and show you something. So when we were talking about software development, across the pipeline, we added various different controls. So we went from the static code analysis, from the dynamic like burp, and to more runtime like a Rasp agent, agentless. There is for sure something in runtime space that is not actually well developed, or at least is not is still having a potential, but we don't work too much into what is the outside the pipeline. So we centralize every control in the CI/CD, and we just have an enforcement. Some companies have enforcement, some others don't. Now, Mythos and all other conversation that we are having is placed between SAST and potentially Dust if you're using something like anti-gravity or some sandboxing of application where it can simulate things. But this one is the how so far we work in terms of securing the pipeline. The pipeline is designed in a way that is actually creating a flow, and that flow is containing also token scan, a repository, and everything is connected to the pipeline. This one, just to introduce what it is, but how it's changing compared to before. We have a more extended attack surface. And the reason is we still have the same problematic approach with a supply chain risk, where an ecosystem of application of different company get connected, and there are a plethora of SaaS services. But we add database like a vector database, we have a graph database, we have an entire pipeline about the data. And that is outside most of the time of the pipeline because it's considered an ATL pipeline. This one means that the actual risk or in terms of threat modeling, the attack surface is wider. We have also attacks that are of AI that are specific to AI, like prompt injection. Not that the input validation is something new in terms of software development, but for sure there is model poisoning and other kind of attacks that are specific to LLM. This one to explain how is morphing, but one of the main difference is also the fact that the pipeline is becoming more data pipeline and a separated ATL, where is happening, for example, the embedding of the data, where we are going to take the data and transforming it into vector database, for example. And to do that, there is some other computational infrastructure doing that. So if we move forward, we do have an idea of secure software development that is based also on the industry. If you work in industrial, you have a standard like the 62443 that explain what is a secured development life cycle, and there are certain requirements, but there is also an understanding of which type of application you are developing, and the security is tuned based on that. Now, it's not always the case in all software programming pipeline, but is to explain how it's changing. UK is introducing a code of practice in terms of software development. I've been working when it was released in terms of innovation UK, and they did an R&D competition, and I've been analyzing everything they release. I will do a dedicated video on that, but I just want to say that every country, every organization, every industry sector is actually focused on the fact that secure development is the pillar of software security, and everybody is introducing some sort of code of practice or guidelines compared to before. There is, for example, mm, an ecosystem of controls, and from an auditing perspective on how to collect evidence on the fact that the software development is mature. And I'm actually working on a multitude of these controls in terms of sanitization and conglomerate all this data all together. Now, as I said, I will dedicate an entire video on that. The AI bomb, or AI's bomb, you find it a bit written in both way, is actually a good data lineage, and is going to verify dependency. But as I said in another video that you should find on my YouTube channel, because I'm going to release it before this one, it's not dealing with prompt injection, model poisoning, backdoors, runtime, and a lot of other good attack vector. So don't think that just the due diligence on that is telling you what is actually the situation. And as I show you in this slide, there are there are there is the threat model of entire Atlas OWASP LLM top 10 that is not covered by the AI software bill of material. Now, the CI/CD and the TL are not always integrated. There are some discussion in terms of design. If you take a pipeline like Databricks, at the end is going to take everything into a data pipeline in terms of connecting, taking the data is a unique ATL, is a data lakehouse, and on top of that, you are having the AI. It's not this one the standard across the industry, and everybody is having a different direction. Some are having the ETL extremely specific to their data ingestion. Other merges the CI/CD with ETL, having some function of ETL in the CI/CD, or having the two completely separated. There are conversations also on where this data is, how get protected across VTL, and especially how you spot the risk. For example, I work a lot with a graph database, and if you miss a relationship in the data, the LLM that is going to use that graph will not be capable to understand the data itself. So it's extremely important also to consider the security of the data in terms of what is actually transformed into a vector database in the case of a RAG, or what is put into a relationship between data. So this one is an important topic, especially now that they are spinning a lot of agents and you'll have a tons of minions going around and having a pipeline that is not anymore a flow, is just each task is in a sort of full mesh. There you don't have an order, and there is where I suggest heavily to have a gateway, because you need to have all these agent into a sort of order, at least in terms of visibility and accountability. So key takeaways, as I said, keep securing your SDLC. I think we are not at a full degree of maturity. I'm a bit worried personally because RASP and runtime was never seen as a standard de facto by the industry. RASP was moving a lot in terms of being agentless, not being anymore a runtime with an agent. It was and is giving a lot of visibility in terms of application. I'm a bit worried because right now all these AI conversation are only in terms of SAST and dust. I think we are missing a lot if we remove runtime. So you should have a solid runtime visibility for incident response, for application maturity, and for integration of your CI/CD, because you can have a tons of control in the pipeline, but if you don't enforce it, you not actually mature your security posture. If you have a SAST and you block code that is not mature with some error and you just push it independently, it's just a compliance exercise. So till still work on maturing all your pipeline, correlate the software bill of material in the normal pipeline with the AI software bill of material. I don't see those to be completely disjointed effort. I don't. I see a lot talking about software bill of material on one side, AI bomb on the other one. It's true that in AI terms, there is Cyclone DX that became the standard de facto. Is I didn't see a mature governance around it, but as I stressed before, it's not covering prompt injection, it's not covering backdoor. You can't give a green light on an LLM just for that. It's not right. You are not covering the entire threat modeling, and it's going to be a big issue. For example, you should see if there are module opening connectivity. You should, in terms also of a backdoor. On that, I think going through a full threat model using Atlas and OWASP top 10, combine the two, because they overlap on many things, but they have some nuances. AI is changing things, but not in terms of governance. The principle of the governance should be the same independently from what you use. For sure, the data and how the ETL and the pipeline of transformation of the data need to have security embedded, need to have visibility of a SOC, need to have a lot of controls. The risk here is too much speed and having data that is crossing other boundaries. The ATL is anyway another infrastructure sometimes, and you can have risk also in terms of data exfiltration and attack of that infrastructure. If you attack that infrastructure in terms of ATL, you are going to have a data pollution problem, and you are going to risk data exfiltration too. Uh, as I said, review the entire security architecture and trying to focus on what is your standard and your requirement also legally in terms of secure development. Use the 62443 in terms of map to map which type of security of software you are developing, just to take as an example of a reference, not because you need to be into an industrial certification, but that is I consider that a really mature fact. Don't focus only on ISO 42001 in terms of achieving the compliance. Consider that the ISO 42001 will anyway correlate and embed with the 27001, and you'll find yourself on having a lot of this correlation. Asset inventory, data inventory, you see the reasoning behind it is actually all the time similar. You need to know what you protect. I hope you enjoy this kind of conversation on how is changing the world in terms of security controls. Uh, I'm uh, I'm here really sharing what I can. Honest sharing is carrying a kind of design that is always uh, giving this slide in my slide share. Participate into the community, try to establish conversation across. I've been part of groups like Cloud Security Alliance and other work group, so I'm active. But please follow, like, support, share, and ask. I'm here for that. At least is what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay, cheers. Bye bye.